All right, what's the next law? All right. So the law of cause and effect is basically what I sow, I reap. In other words, I am responsible for every single thing that's happening in my life right now. Every single thing. Now, there's a huge emotional rejection of that for most people. Most people believe that other people are responsible for these negative things that other people say and do towards me. Right? So if I'm having anger projected at me, that's their problem. It's not actually. It's your issue. Now, that doesn't mean that you have anger in you. What it might mean is that you have fear in you that attracts their anger. Or you have a feeling of being controlled by people's anger that you need to release. Or you have a feeling that you're willing to be manipulated because you're afraid of their violence that's in you. That might be another feeling that's in you. But the law of cause and effect is always saying, I am responsible for everything that's going on in my life. Now, this is as an adult. I am responsible for all of these different things that I am creating and causing. Now, when I love myself, when I feel love towards myself, I will honour that law. Now, the way that I honour it is by understanding that it's pointless for me to try to change an effect when I've got an emotional cause still happening inside of me. I'm on a wild goose chase when I'm doing that, basically. You know, you've seen the dog chasing its tail, and it's quite amusing, but our lives don't feel very amusing when it feels like we're chasing our tail, does it? It's like going around and around and around. And that's because oftentimes we're not respecting this law. What we're doing is we're trying to change the effect of what our soul is creating. And we're not changing the cause, and so our soul goes on creating exactly the thing that we're trying to change. And we try all of our life, and many of us feel exhausted in our life because we still feel like we're trying to change things, trying to make things better. Things might slowly get better, but it just seems like, wow, like how much effort to make just one little change in my life. And the reason why that's happening is because I don't understand that there's the emotional, the soul-based cause within me that's creating my life. And unless I'm willing to deal with that soul-based cause in me, I'm not loving myself. So what do we do instead of that? We focus on the effect. Well, how do we focus on the effect? Somebody gets angry and upset with me, so what do? Get angry and upset back with them, trying to prevent them or control them from getting angry with me. All I'm doing is addressing the effect. So what's going to happen? I'm going to have an argument next week and an argument next month and an argument next year in the same way. So this happens a lot in our family with our children. One of the children always wants to argue with me. Why? Because I'm not dealing with the... Makes sense? As soon as I deal with the cause, that child's going to stop arguing with me. But instead, what do we try to do? We try to punish the child for arguing with me. We give them little, demerit things that they have to do, whatever that is. And in the end, what are we doing? We're just dealing with the effect, and we are already recreating the cause as we're doing that. Right? Now, when I stop doing that, what happens? All of a sudden, my life changes. Because once I deal with the cause, once I focus on the cause, and even just to focus on the cause is, yes, I created it. That's the start of focusing on the cause. That's the first point you've got to get to, focusing on the cause. Just yes, an acknowledgement. Yes, I've created everything in my life. Every single disease I've got in my body, that's my creation. It's a suppressed emotion in me that I'm not releasing. There's something going on inside of me that I'm not dealing with. That's the cause. Every time I deny that one truth, right, and we're still some of us who are willing to deny that one truth even right now, but every time I deny that truth, I am going to be left dealing with the effects of these causes over and over and over and over and over again, and you're going to get very exhausted until you understand what is the creator of them. So it's far better to understand what is creating them than it is to deal with the effect. Now you look at every law that mankind creates. Generally, what does it do? Deals with effects. So we've got all these speeding laws. We've got all these fines for breaking the law, which is just dealing with the effect. It doesn't deal with the emotional reason. You look at the drunk driver laws. How many people still drive with alcohol? Like, there's millions in Australia doing it every week. But there's a whole group of laws that are meant to stop it. Are they stopping it? No. Why? Because the laws only deal with the effect. What's the cause? Why does a person want to get drunk for a start? And then why do they want to get drunk and then drive? Which is another set of conditions, emotional conditions within them. If you start addressing the emotional cause, if the law addressed the cause, we'd have far less drunk drivers on the road and far less accidents and injuries and deaths due to drunk driving. But that doesn't happen. What we do generally in the world today is we just deal with the effect. So what we do is we make another law. So, you see law after law after law being created, one after the other after the other. None of us even know how many there are anymore. Like, I can't even remember 20 of them, like, in this country. Like, I don't know how you would go remembering them, particularly how they're stated. Like, I'm not allowed to drive on the wrong side of the road. That's a fairly obvious one to me. I know that one. When there's a sign there that says 100, that means I go 100. But nobody in Queensland seems to obey that one. It's funny, when we were driving in New South Wales last week, everyone in New South Wales seems to obey that one. And it's all because of the fear of the effect. Because in New South Wales the fines are a bit higher, there's more speed cameras all checking you all the time, and the police all have speed cameras going back and forward all the time. And so there's a lot more presence that causes people to slow down. So we noticed when we went into New South Wales, all of a sudden everyone was doing the speed limit rather than having people whoosh past while you're doing the speed limit. And in the end, though, none of these laws really deal with the cause. What's the reason why I want to speed? And what would be the reason why I want to do it that's dangerous in a manner to other people? Then there's got to be something going on there, doesn't there? Inside of me emotionally. Let's address the emotion. Can you see how it works? If I address the emotion, then I'm loving myself. If I love myself, I will always focus on the emotional cause within myself of this creation. If I don't love myself, I will try to plan and schedule my life to get around it. And when we do that, all we finish up doing is getting around our fears, and avoiding our fears. But our fears are in us, and so they're going to create another situation that creates this fear. This is why we have lots of accidents in our life. There was one lady I knew who had 22 accidents in the space of 3 years. Every time avoiding the emotion that created the accident for her. And I asked her to just place herself for a moment in one of those accidents in her mind and in her imagination, and then allow whatever feelings to come up. And she felt absolutely terrified. And it was this terror of personal hurt that was creating every accident that she was still avoiding. And so she kept creating more accident, creating another accident, creating another accident. And once she deals with that emotion, she'll find that those events will not occur anymore. It's just that simple. So what did she do instead? Get a bigger car so it's safer, put a bull bar on the front so that somebody else gets hurt instead of me, and so forth and so forth. But in the end, if you don't deal with the underlying cause, another accident will happen. In her case, it just kept happening, until she deals with the cause. All right. Can you see how that relates to love of self? Because if I'm dealing with just the effect of any of my actions, can you see that I'm just going to get tired, exhausted? That's not loving myself. You can see this happening all the time too when other people want you to deal with effects rather than causes. If you love yourself, you won't get drawn into that. Right? So to give you an example, let's say you've got a son, you're maybe in your 50s or 60s, you've got a son who's in his 20s or 30s, and he's pretty reckless with money. And every time he spends the last of his funds, he comes to you for a bailout. Right? Now, if I really loved myself, would I do that? No, I wouldn't. And remember, sacrifice of myself in order to love another is not loving to myself or the other either. So if I bailed him out and sacrificed my feeling in the process, then that's not loving either. So what do I need to do? I need to look at the cause within me of why he keeps asking and why I keep giving him the money. Because there's an emotional cause that's probably related to guilt. Guilt that I've somehow damaged their childhood through their upbringing or something like that. I deal with that emotion. He may or may not deal with the cause within him, but I've at least dealt with the cause within me. And then when he comes to me for the funds, I could focus on, son, why are you creating this? You create this time after time after time. If I just give you the funds, what am I doing? Besides being unloving to myself, I'm actually being unloving to you. I'm actually letting you create the same thing without feeling the effects of your creation. Does God do that? No. God always has you feel the effects of what you create. All of God's laws are loving, and this is why cause is so important to deal with. Does that make sense?